Hey there, Canadian Insights fam. So picture this, you're sitting at a poker table, you've got a royal flush in infrastructure, natural resources, and strategic location, and then you watch Saskatchewan slide $1 billion across the table to Washington state. Yeah, that just happened. David Eby is furious, Saskatchewan is playing with new friends, and British Columbia just got left on read in the group chat. Buckle up, because this potash drama is spicier than an Nanaimo bar dipped in hot sauce. Alright, so here's what went down. Nutrien Ltd, that massive Saskatchewan-based fertilizer company you've probably never thought about but absolutely should, just announced they're dropping a cool $1 billion on a shiny new potash export terminal. Sounds great, right? Economic growth, jobs, all that good stuff. Except here's the kicker, they're building it in Longview, Washington. Not Prince Rupert. Not Vancouver. Washington. State. As in, not even Canada. David Eby, BC's Premier, heard this news and basically had the political equivalent of watching someone choose Bing over Google. He told reporters he was really disappointed, which in Canadian politics speak translates to I am absolutely losing my mind but I have to smile for the cameras. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but why does this matter? Well, let me paint you a picture. British Columbia has some of the most strategically valuable ports in North America. Prince Rupert and Vancouver are literally the gateways to Asia. They're closer to Asian markets than any other major North American port. We're talking about a geographic advantage that would make a real estate agent weep with joy. And yet, Saskatchewan looked at all that beautiful BC coastline and said, nah, we're good. We'll take the American option, thanks. It's like having a Ferrari in your driveway and calling an Uber instead. So what's Nutrien's excuse? According to them, it's all about the money, honey. They're citing a whole host of cost reasons that make Longview more attractive. We're talking about everything from rail transportation costs to port fees to regulatory headaches. Essentially, Nutrien ran the numbers and decided that even after paying international tariffs and dealing with cross-border logistics, it's still cheaper to ship through Washington than through BC. Let that sink in for a second. It's literally more cost-effective for a Canadian company to export Canadian resources through American infrastructure. That's not just embarrassing, that's a five-alarm economic fire wrapped in a red flag doing interpretive dance. But wait, it gets better. Or worse. Definitely worse. So while Eby is processing this economic gut punch, he finds out about another fun little tidbit. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has been having cozy little conversations with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith about potentially building an oil pipeline through British Columbia. And guess who wasn't invited to these discussions? If you guessed David Eby, the premier of the province where this pipeline would actually go, you win absolutely nothing because that's exactly what happened. Eby told the CBC he almost fell out of his seat when he heard about it. I mean, imagine finding out your neighbors are planning a block party in your backyard and you're the last to know. Except instead of a block party, it's a massive infrastructure project with environmental and economic implications. Eby's frustration is pretty understandable here. He's sitting there thinking, we've got the ports, we've got the infrastructure potential, we've got the geographic advantage, and yet Saskatchewan is out here treating BC like the friend you only text when you need help moving. The Premier called it the worst of both worlds, and honestly, he's not wrong. BC gets all the potential environmental concerns and regulatory burden of being a transit province, but apparently none of the economic benefits because companies are just bouncing to Washington state instead. Now, let's talk about what this really means for Canada as a whole, because Eby made a pretty solid point about this. He said the whole country would benefit from investing in port expansion on the west coast. And he's absolutely right. When we're talking about exporting potash, which is a critical component in fertilizers and therefore global food security, having efficient, cost-effective Canadian export routes isn't just good for BC or Saskatchewan, it's good for the entire national economy. It's about sovereignty, it's about economic independence, and it's about not handing billions of dollars in economic activity to our neighbors just because we can't get our infrastructure act together. Here's where it gets really interesting though. This whole situation is basically a microcosm of Canada's ongoing interprovincial drama. You've got provinces that don't always play nice with each other, federal-provincial tensions that could power a small city, and infrastructure challenges that make building anything feel like negotiating a Middle East peace treaty. Saskatchewan needs export capacity. BC has ports but apparently can't make the economics work. Alberta wants pipelines. Everyone's talking past each other instead of to each other. It's like watching a family dinner where everyone's passive-aggressive and nobody's passing the potatoes. The really frustrating part is that this didn't have to happen this way. BC ports have been struggling with congestion, labor disputes, and competitiveness issues for years. These aren't new problems. They're the kind of chronic issues that everyone knows about, everyone complains about, and somehow nobody quite manages to fix. And now we're seeing the consequences. When Canadian companies start looking south of the border because it's easier and cheaper, that's not just a one-time loss, that's a pattern that could reshape trade flows for decades. So what's the solution? Well, Eby seems to think it involves better interprovincial cooperation and significant investment in port infrastructure. Which, yeah, obviously. But getting that done requires provincial governments to actually work together, federal funding commitments, and probably about 17,000 meetings that'll make everyone want to take a long walk off a short pier. The political will has to be there, and right now it's looking about as solid as a Tim Hortons double-double left in the sun. Look, at the end of the day, this Nutrien situation is a wake-up call wrapped in a billion-dollar embarrassment. It's showing us that Canada's infrastructure competitiveness isn't just about having good geography, it's about having the policies, costs, and cooperation to actually capitalize on that geography. Washington State just ate our lunch, and they didn't even say thank you. So that's the tea on Saskatchewan's potash plot twist. David Eby is fuming, BC's ports are losing out, and somewhere in Longview, Washington, they're probably cracking open the champagne. If you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button faster than Nutrien abandoned Canadian ports. Subscribe to Canadian Insights because we're dropping multiple videos daily keeping you in the loop on all the political chaos our great nation has to offer. And drop a comment below, are you Team Eby on this one, or do you think Nutrien made the right business call? Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, even when our politicians are feuding, at least they're doing it politely. That's the Canadian way. Catch you in the next one.